Before Silicon Valley, there was the Valley of Heart's Delight. When people imagine Silicon Valley, they picture glass office buildings, engineers writing code, venture capitalists funding startups, artificial intelligence training inside vast data centers. But just a few generations ago, the same landscape looked completely different. Where semiconductor campuses stand today, there were orchards. Where technology parks now stretch across the valley, rows of apricot trees once bloomed for miles. And where billions of dollars of digital value are created every year, farmers produced some of the most valuable fruit crops in America. Before Silicon Valley became famous for microchips, it was famous for apricots. And the story of how those orchards flourished reveals something surprising. Silicon Valley didn't emerge from nowhere. It evolved from a region that had already spent decades mastering the art of innovation. Long before the words Silicon Valley existed, the region was known by a far more poetic name, the Valley of Heart's Delight. The name wasn't marketing. It was a description. Every spring, millions of fruit trees exploded into bloom. Apricots, prunes, cherries, peaches, pears. The valley became one of the most productive fruit-growing regions in the United States and a major exporter of agricultural products. Visitors described a landscape filled with blossoms, orchards, and fertile farmland stretching across Santa Clara County. The future capital of technology looked more like a vast garden. At first glance, agriculture and technology seem like completely different worlds. One is associated with tractors and harvests, the other with computers and software. But that distinction can be misleading, because the forces that made Santa Clara Valley successful as an agricultural region would later help make it successful as a technology region. The industry changed. The underlying capabilities remained remarkably similar. California's agricultural success wasn't simply the result of good weather. The climate helped. But climate alone does not create an economic powerhouse. What transformed California agriculture was something more sophisticated. Systems, infrastructure, science, scale. The gold rush created enormous demand for food. Mining camps needed supplies. Growing cities needed markets. A rapidly expanding population needed reliable agricultural production. Suddenly, farmers weren't merely feeding local communities. They were serving an expanding regional economy. Then came the railroad. When the first transcontinental railroad connected California to the rest of the country, an extraordinary opportunity emerged. Fruit grown in Santa Clara Valley could now reach distant markets. Farmers were no longer limited by geography. Their customers could be thousands of miles away. Refrigerated transportation extended that reach even further. Irrigation projects transformed dry land into productive farmland. Agricultural scientists developed new methods for increasing yields and improving cultivation. Food processing and canning facilities expanded distribution networks. What emerged was not simply farming. It was a highly sophisticated production system. One that combined science, infrastructure, capital investment, logistics, and specialized expertise. Sound familiar? Because it should. Many people assumed Silicon Valley represented a complete break from the region's past, as if orchards vanished one day and semiconductor factories appeared the next. But history rarely works that way. In reality, agriculture and technology overlapped for decades. Early technology firms emerged while orchards still occupied significant portions of the valley. The transition wasn't a replacement. It was an evolution. Think about what successful agriculture required. Scientific experimentation, complex infrastructure, specialized labor, national distribution networks, large-scale investment. The ability to produce high-value products and sell them to distant markets. Now think about what successful technology companies require. Engineering research, digital infrastructure, technical talent, global platforms, venture capital. The ability to create high-value products and distribute them worldwide. The similarities are striking. The Santa Clara Valley was already learning how to scale complex systems long before anyone built a computer there. The crop changed. The operating model remained. During the 20th century, a new industry began taking root. Universities produced engineers. Research laboratories expanded. Defense contracts funded technological development. Semiconductor companies emerged. The region gradually shifted from producing fruit to producing information. Yet, even as orchards disappeared, the valley retained something essential: its culture of experimentation, its willingness to invest in new ideas, its ability to combine science, infrastructure, and entrepreneurship. The same qualities that helped farmers maximize crop yields would later help engineers maximize computing power. Viewed from a distance, the transformation appears dramatic. Orchards became office parks. Packing plants became technology campuses. Fruit exports became software exports. But viewed more carefully, a deeper continuity emerges. The region remained committed to solving complex problems through knowledge, systems, and scale. One of the most persistent myths about Silicon Valley is that it appeared suddenly, that innovation arrived fully formed in the mid-20th century. But the roots run deeper. Long before semiconductors, long before venture capital, long before startups, the Santa Clara Valley was already building expertise in scientific problem-solving, infrastructure development, large-scale production, and global distribution. Silicon Valley did not emerge from an economic vacuum. It emerged from a region that had spent generations learning how to transform knowledge into productivity. The orchards and the microchips may seem unrelated, but both were products of the same underlying system: a culture focused on experimentation, scale, and growth. Which brings us back to the question at the heart of Bay origins. Why did it happen here? Perhaps because this region had been innovating long before anyone called it Silicon Valley. The innovator's ledger. Lesson 1. Innovation often starts earlier than you think. Most breakthrough industries inherit capabilities from earlier industries. The companies that appear revolutionary are often standing on foundations built decades before. Before asking what's new, ask, what existing strengths make this innovation possible? Lesson 2. Infrastructure creates opportunity. California agriculture succeeded because farmers invested in irrigation, transportation, processing, and distribution systems. Technology ecosystems work the same way. The visible breakthrough is often supported by invisible infrastructure. Lesson 3. Reinvention is a competitive advantage. The Santa Clara Valley did not remain locked into a single identity. It evolved. From orchards to semiconductors, from agriculture to software, from local production to global innovation. Organizations that survive for generations often possess the same ability. They reinvent themselves before they are forced to. The Valley of Heart's Delight became Silicon Valley because the region learned how to apply existing strengths to entirely new opportunities. What capabilities does your organization already possess that could become the foundation for its next transformation? Before there were startups, there were orchards. Before there were microchips, there were apricots. And before Silicon Valley became famous for changing the world, the Valley of Heart's Delight was already demonstrating how knowledge, infrastructure, and innovation could create extraordinary value. The industry changed. The pattern remained. This is Bay Origins, birthplace of the future.